And if this sounds extreme, the average cost of petrol in Britain is higher even than that. Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to gas stations. If you've been paying attention to the news recently, you'll know that Britain has been experiencing a fuel crisis. Much of Britain has reported dry pumps due to a truck driver shortage, and this has led to panic buying. And because of the nature of my channel, many Americans have gotten in touch to inquire about some of the differences that they've noticed while watching the news between British gas stations and American ones. And so whether we're talking about nozzles or the cost of fuel, here are 6 ways that British and American gas stations are very different. We can hardly talk about this subject without first covering the differences in terminology. The major difference here, of course, is the fact that Americans refer to the fuel that you put in your car as gasoline, while in Britain this is known as petrol. But just as with the word soccer and aluminum, the word gasoline didn't originate in the United States, but Britain. The word is widely believed to have evolved from the word cazoline, as in cazoline oil, named for its founder, John Cassell, who was a 19th century British businessman. We Brits eventually stopped using the word, and then America, not to mention Canada and New Zealand, didn't get the memo. And because Americans use gasoline, or gas for short, the building where you pump fuel into your vehicle is known as a gas station. In Britain, it's known quite similarly as a petrol station. However, when I was a child 400 years ago, my family and I used to informally refer to it as the garage. And since it appears that that word is still used in Britain in that capacity, the word garage bears the distinction of having both different meanings and different pronunciations on either side of the pond. Of course, all of that is pretty easy to translate between one country and the other. Where it gets confusing is at the pump itself. And this is partly down to the colour coding that each country uses for its nozzles. The big difference in this department is between the nozzles indicating diesel and unleaded. Generally speaking, in the United States, fuel nozzles are colour-coded black to indicate unleaded and green to indicate diesel. In Britain, it's the complete opposite. Diesel is black and unleaded is green. Now, Americans who specifically get their gas at BP might be thinking, hold on Lawrence, you've got your wires crossed, or pumps. My diesel pumps are black and my unleaded is green. And that's true. BP is one of the exceptions that proves the rule. Hardly surprising, since BP stands for British Petroleum. All that said, there is one feature of the pumps that lets you know if you're in Britain or America. And that feature is the hold open clip. And some of my British viewers might be watching this thinking, what is a hold open clip? And I don't blame you, because I didn't know myself until I moved to the United States. Here, a hold open clip is a little clip that you can push within the handle that allows you to pump gas completely hands-free. In the UK, safety regulations prevent customers from utilising this feature. And so the question is Britain right to be concerned? And the resounding answer to that question is partly. You see, in the United States, use of the hold open clip has been indirectly responsible for about 100 static fires every year. And while this is very unlikely to happen, the vast majority of these fires have been caused by customers using the hold open clip while returning to their car. And so the static resulting from the person rubbing against their seat and then returning to the hands-free pump has been known to start fires. All that to say, just be more aware of flammability when passing gas. That's true in both senses of the phrase. Travel is obviously quite restricted right now, but when American tourists do visit Britain, they could be forgiven for looking at the cost of British petrol and thinking, oh, it's cheaper than in the States. But in fact, the opposite is true, and by some way. Travellers will be aware, of course, that the number written on the board is written in pounds sterling, and that this equates to a slightly higher number in US currency. But there's one other very important conversion to consider: gallons to litres. A US liquid gallon is equal to about 3.7 litres. So let's say that the cost of fuel at a British petrol station is £1.30 by the litre. To get the amount by the gallon, you'd multiply by 3.7. This comes out to £4.80, and in US dollars, British petrol in this scenario would cost around $6.52 by the gallon. And if this sounds extreme, the average cost of petrol in Britain is higher even than that. If we assume that everything has been converted to US dollars and gallons, the average cost of petrol in Britain over the last 10 years was $7.53. Compare this to the United States, where it was just $2.85. The chief reason for this cost differential is that Britain adds on substantially more tax. It's not just hold open clips that make a trip to a US gas station more convenient than their British counterpart. The method by which Americans pay is also easier on the customer, especially those of us who have a hard time talking to people. You see, in America, it is commonplace to prepay for your gas at the pump. And this is usually, of course, achieved by using a credit or debit card, but some machines will even accept cash. In Britain, prepay machines at the pump do exist, but they're far, far less common, with payment usually taking place at the counter, which is why I prefer to take the bus. And I thought I'd conclude this video by looking at the availability of petrol stations. In other words, how likely are you to encounter a gas station per square mile in both Britain and America? Well, current events notwithstanding, Britain, or in fact the UK, has about 8,385 petrol stations. Given the country's area, this equates to one petrol station for every 11 square miles. Unsurprisingly, the United States has substantially more. As of 2012, it boasted around 114,000 nationwide. But, and I think I've mentioned this before, the United States is substantially larger than the UK, and on that score has only one gas station for every 33 square miles. Now, this really shouldn't surprise anybody. Britain, of course, has a much higher population density than the US, and this is dramatically true if you compare Britain with many states west of the Mississippi. In fact, it turns out there are numerous places out west where there are no gas stations for over 100 miles. So if you forget to fill up beforehand, it could be a long walk. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below if you've experienced the others gas stations. I'm Lawrence Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. A full tank size shout out to my patrons who make these videos possible. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond, you can do so today at patreon.com/LostInThePond. Until the next video, goodbye.